Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. In today's video, I want to take you with me and plant some of the homegrown amaranth with you. Amaranth is one of my favorite annual flowers or plants for the garden because they come with a lot of texture and also amazing color. The way on how I want to structure today's video is, first of all, I just really want to focus and give you some general information about amaranth itself. Then I want to show you my seedlings, and the good news is if you haven't sown any amaranth yet, there's still time for it because they germinate fast and they also grow in pretty fast. Then I want to take some of my seedlings and plant them out straight into my border, so I hope you're excited to spend some time with us in the garden. Amaranth is an amazing annual plant, not only for your ornamental garden, but for your vegetable garden too. Globally, you find roughly 75 different species, 10 of which are native to the north of America. Amaranth grows on every single continent but Antarctica. So the reason is, why do you want to introduce it to your own garden? Well, first of all, they have an amazing texture that you really don't want to miss in your border. Second of all, they have really pretty colors. And third of all, they come in stunning height. Some varieties, like Coral Fountain, for example, can grow 2.50 meters, which is 8 feet. And the best thing of them all is you can grow them extremely easy from seed on your own. Color is always key to every single garden. Personally, I love to start the garden year very soft and pastel-y, like here on my terrace garden, where you find a lot of tones of white, blush, and at the moment, an ocean of violet. But then later on, as the year progresses, I love to have some rich and zingy colors in the garden, and this is why amaranth is fantastic. A lot of the varieties produce beautiful blooms in cherry red, crimson, or burgundy, but you find even green or very intriguing burnt caramel and orange shades. The interesting thing is that this doesn't only apply to the flowers, but also to the foliage. Most of the leaves will be lush green, but some are even burgundy red, very sinister, and have quite an impact to your border. And this is exactly what I want to plant today. Texture is also interesting when you create a border, and this is why amaranth is really interesting for you. I think the best way on how to describe these blooms is with a fabric such as boucle. Some varieties, they produce these tassels. They are cascading down. It is very glorious when they wave in the wind. Others have a more upright growing habit. As always, right plant in the right place, so amaranth is not very fuzzy. The soil it requires very normal neutral garden soil, and it thrives best when you grow it in full sun. We're here in my new vegetable garden, and part of it will also be my brand new cut flower garden. And you can tell that there are a lot of pots still standing here. And this is what I want to plant out today. So I have quite a lot of red amaranth still. And this year was a lucky year for me because normally red amaranth is a magnet for slugs and snails, but I definitely had my A game on. I was daily checking for slugs and snails, and most of the plants made it through. As a little update, this is a cut flower garden, and here we were planting just a couple of weeks ago, and the stock that I planted out with you, look, it produces first flower buds. So it won't be long up until I can give you an update and show you how things are progressing here. More red amaranth is here. Those were sown a little earlier, and they definitely are crying out to find their way into the borders. I always put 4, sometimes 5 plants in a pot like this just to save some room and space, because otherwise I don't really know where to put all of these plants anymore. So what I want to do now is grab all of these plants that I want to plant out with you and show you in the upper garden where they're bound to go. Here in the back of the garden, I mainly focus on color combinations of purple, violet, some cherry red and burgundy. So this is why the red amaranth fits really perfectly here. Especially you can see that all of the perennials have green foliage, so introducing something that has red leaves is just fantastic. First big drift of amaranth is already planted. I did it 2 weeks ago. Last year I had amaranth in this area too, but some riccinus. I skipped the riccinus this year and extended the amount of amaranth that went into this area. Some were already eaten by slugs and snails, so there are a couple of pots standing in there, so I have to put some new plants in. But I think it's going to look very pretty when it wraps around the eusphere, and also having the beautiful drift of Calamagrostis calfurster in the backdrop. So if we continue walking, this is my big new perennial border. Last year I did a garden tour video where I showed you how it looked, I think in summer and autumn, and I said that I was really missing the red amaranth in this border here, and I want to change it this year. So what I already did is I came in here, I took some of the asters out, and I already planted one blob of red amaranth here. So if I just step back a little bit, the idea is if you walk through the garden and you see it just behind this really beautiful purple salvia that you see there. This is a variety called Caradonna. Behind there will be really beautiful red amaranth. Then I'm going to have the blob here, and then I want to plant another drift just here in front of the phlox. This phlox is a variety called Goliath. It's going to bloom in purple, so I will have just the perfect color combination that I'm longing for here. Then I want to have another drift, or more a blob of red amaranth, here underneath the walnut tree. I never grew it here, but I think that it is going to look very pretty and interesting here, because up front there is a nice drift of Panacetum. This is red Mohican, if I'm not wrong. So the flower heads will be reddish. Then I will have the red amaranth there. Then in the back I have the foliage of the shrub with a very dark and nice foliage. Here there are some bearded iris now, then some cedar matrona. So I'm going to have some really interesting cedar matrona with the dark red stems, the red amaranth, and the red grass here. This is red barren, which doesn't look too good. In general, you can tell that we hardly had any rain. I mean, look at the lawn. Who is not a pleasant sight. So I'm really hoping for a lot of rain, honestly, in the next couple of weeks, even though it might mean that I can't do a video, but at this point, I really would like to have some rain. The actual planting of annuals is fairly easy. What I did is I already removed the mulch in a certain area, and then I came in with a shovel and lofted up the soil a little bit. Especially now after so many weeks of having no rain, there are some areas where the soil is very compact, and I want to make sure that the soil is lofty so that these plants can root in fairly well. I told you before that because of spacing reasons, I always put 4, sometimes 5 plants in a container like this. So all I need to do now is tip it over. They've already rooted in extremely well. There is one rule of thumb on how you can always learn if your plants are ready to get potted. Every of these container always has little watering holes at the base. So once you start the first roots coming through or poking through these holes, you know that your plant is ready to be planted out. You can always tip it over. And what you want to see is quintessentially this, a nice framework of roots. Unfortunately, I have to break them open now. So I am probably 2 weeks too late on these plants, but sometimes you know how it is. So many projects in the garden and you can't manage to get on with all of them at once. But this is how one individual plant looks now. I think that they are fairly fantastic. What I do is whenever I plant something, I come in with a little bit of organic bone chips. They break down to nitrogen just in the planting hole. And then this plant will be pushed into the soil exactly level to how I grew it in its pot. And in terms of spacing, because amaranth unfortunately is very popular, not just with me, but also with slugs and snails, I sometimes plant them a little bit closer. The reason is because I might lose some plants, so it's always good to have some backup plants. The second reason is I think that they really give you an amazing impact if you try to put as many plants in a border as possible. So what I will do now is plant my way through here, and then by the end of the video I'm going to have really lovely drifts of red color in the garden. Guess what I'm watering? And not only my freshly planted amaranth, also the lawn, because this patch looks horrifying. And unfortunately, this really is one of my favorite vistas into the garden. So I was like, you know what, something has to change. I really need to set it up now a little more frequently and water it just if there won't be any rain in the forecast. But it is very important that you water in whatever you plant in your garden straight away, because you want to make sure that the roots have instant contact with the soil surrounding them, because then you allow your plants to grow in and root in very fast. Within the first week, you're not going to see too much, but then after 1 week, you might realize that the plants are really picking up with some good growth. What I did too is I planted some more amaranth plants here in between the Calamagrostis calfursa grass on the left and the Aconitum on the right. There is a nice gap in between there. And I tried it last year and all of my amaranth were eaten by slugs and snails. So I hope this year they have a little mercy. I just put a couple of plants there to see, but I think it would be so nice, like visually it would look fantastic there. Then here just behind the aconitum and in front of the phlox, as I told you, and then as we continue walking, here the drift, nothing has happened there. Those are looking really nice. No slug and snail damage at all, so that makes me happy. I should knock on wood now after saying that, don't jinx anything. And here I came in and just really filled the gaps and put a couple of more amaranth here. So what I'm going to do too is just set up the water and just make sure that they will be watered in quite thoroughly too. Planting days are always great fun days in the garden, maybe next to harvest days, though they're also quite special, but what's better than growing something from seed and when the plants are ready, that you can finally take them and push them into the soil. So all I have to do now is to make sure that they're always nice, watered, and watch them grow. And fingers crossed, everything is going to look exactly to how I envision it. I think later on in the year, like in late summer and early autumn, the entire site will be quite glorious. I'm definitely going to give you update tours. Before that happens though, I have a lot more projects that I want to share with you here everywhere in my garden. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope I could encourage you on try to grow some amaranth in your own garden. Thank you if you decide to subscribe to my channel, if you give me a thumbs up for any of my videos, and if you want to see more of my garden, the link to my Instagram is down below this video here. And I'm honestly looking forward to spend a lot more time with you in my garden very soon. So take care guys, bye.